Okay, I'm going to show you how to do a base, a Amigurumi base pattern in general with little tweaking here and there, and I'm using a 15 peg CinDwood Loom, a half gauge, but I will also have the 12 peg pattern written out on my blog, and it's not going to be much different than this. So what you want to do is you want to do a drawstring cast on circularly, and then you want to E-wrap 3 rows. Okay, well, what you want to do is you want to give the space between your legs, and on the 15 pegs it's 3, on the 12 pegs it's 1. So on 12 pegs just do 1 E-wrap, on this one do 3. Okay, the next 3 pegs, and this includes the 12 peg loom, are going to be your first leg, and we're going to go from the bottom up on the body. And what you're going to do is you're going to take these 3 pegs and you're going to work short rows, and you're going to do it 11 times. You're going to do 11 short rows. So here's 1, 2, 3, and so on until you have 11 rows. So go back and forth until you have 11 rows. So go ahead and pause the video and continue going back and forth on those 3 pegs doing short rows, and then we'll come back from there and go on. Okay, I've completed 11 rows, and I'm going to push that down in there. And what I want to do is, this is going to make it easier to sew the legs up, but you do not have to do this. I'm going to go in and bring just the end original loops up. And the way to find that, if you're wanting to do this, is go to your next peg that you would be E-wrapping and follow the line down until you reach your first loop, which that'll be your first loop. And then you're just going to put that back on to the peg, but make sure that your working yarn is where you can continue. So go ahead and put that back on the working peg, and then you want to do the same thing on the other side. So there's your space, and then you want to follow that line over, and there is your original loop. You want to place it back on there. Okay, now with the Amigurumi, our tail is going to be separate on this pattern that I'm working on, but just to keep in mind, on your 12 peg this is going to be 1, on this one it's going to be 2, so E-wrap 2, and then you're going to have 2 pegs for your tail to work with right in here, and then you're going to E-wrap 2 on the other side. But on this one I'm going to not do the tail. The tail's going to be special, so I'm going to do something a little different. But a lot of times your tail is going to be on these 2 pegs, and it's the 2 pegs on the 12 peg loom too. So you E-wrap 2, and then you work your tail, flat rows usually, through here. And this video is going to be the base for several other Amigurumi patterns where I'm just going to show you the difference that shows up, and I'm going to send you back to this pattern consistently because this is the base. So right in here, these 2 is going to be your tail area where you'll go back and forth. So like there's 1, toss over, 2, and it's usually, if you're going to do like a tail for a bear, you're going to do 5 rows and then bring the original loops back up. And then you're going to, on your 12 peg loom, knit E-wrap 1 on the 15 peg, E-wrap 2. Now you can also do a traditional knit or flat knit. You don't have to do the E-wrap, but I find the E-wrap's easier to deal with. Okay. Then on the last 3, you're going to repeat exactly what you did with the first leg. You're going to go back and forth 11 rows, and then if you feel like it, bring those original loops on those end pegs up. Don't bring the middle one, because if you bring the middle one up, you won't be able to stuff the leg. So go ahead and complete your leg, and then what you want to do is you want to E-wrap 4. You want to E-wrap 4 rows after that. So you just want to E-wrap 4 rows after you complete your other leg. You E-wrap 4 rows. Okay, after you complete the 4 rows for your body, what you want to do now is you want to repeat your leg area, but without what would be a tail section. So basically you're just going to go in and you repeat the leg area we just did again, and you can go back in the video and do that, but you're going to repeat the leg area again, just like we just did. And if you see me adding a tail in here, you just won't add the tail, of course, at the top of the body. So after you complete the leg area, what you'll want to do is E-wrap a row after you complete the leg area, and then just cast off whatever way you prefer to cast off. And so go ahead and pause the video, and we'll go from there to work on the head. Okay, when doing the amigurumi head, you'll want to do a drawstring cast on. And while you may not actually be drawstringing the entire thing together, it's just going to be easier to draw it to a point where it's nice and even, like that. And while this is looking more like a tube, it will expand. So I want to do 7 rows of E-wrap, and this is the same for the 12 peg. You want to do 7 rows. Okay, after you complete your 7 rows, you typically want to add your ears in here. And we're going to kind of follow the same logic we did through this, but we're going to leave less space. And it's going to be the same on the 12 peg loom. Just keep this in mind. It's going to be a little different in the amount of pegs you E-wrap through here. But there's going to be 2 pegs that are separating your ears. Same on the 12 peg. Okay, and on the 12 peg, instead of it being 3 pegs that you're working with for the ears, most likely it'll be 2. Unless you're working with a special kind of ear, then it'll be 3. And keep in mind, there'll either be 2 on the in between those 2 pegs, 2 on either side, or 3 on either side. Because I'm going to be doing something with a little bigger of ears, I'm going to be using 3. But what you want to do is whatever video you're working from, you're going to be working your ears on either side of these 2 pegs. And then you're going to E-wrap in between those, just E-wrap it. And then you're probably going to want to do the bring original loops back if you feel comfortable with it. And then after that, you'll E-wrap one more row, and then we'll go from there. So go ahead and pause the video and complete your head to whatever point you need to, and then we'll go from there. Okay, after you would have completed your ear row, you're going to finish the head after you've done 1 more row after your ear row, which will make a total of 9 rows. After you do that, you're going to take the first loop and move it over to the next peg and toss the bottom loop over. Take the next loop, move it over to the next peg, toss the bottom loop over, and you're going to do the same thing on the 12 peg loom as well, because we're fixing to cast off. We want the top of the head to be nice and smooth, creating more of a sphere rather than a pill shape. And on the 15 peg loom, one will be off. On the 12 peg loom, it'll be entirely even. At this point, cut you a tail and drawstring cast off. And you can do this with a needle if you want, but I'm just going to pull it up from the bottom and toss the loop off. So you're going to do a drawstring cast off. And then you're going to close up the top of the head and start putting the amigurumi animal together. And I'm going to show you how to go in and sew up the legs and the head and stuff, and sew up ears and that kind of thing. So that makes it easier to understand how all this works. Okay, here's my last one. Alright. There's my ears. And we're going to drawstring the head together. And then you're going to close it off. And the best way I find to go in and close off is to pull it through with a crochet hook, pull it through once, tighten it, take the crochet hook up through the middle, and pull down through the center. And I don't ever like to cut the yarn because you can just use it as stuffing, and it takes less stuffing to do it. Okay, now that I have done that, I'm going to want to sew up my ears, but I want to cut off a lot of the excess so that I can have a better idea of seeing what I'm doing. But don't cut it off too short. Okay. And a lot of times your ears won't change color like this, which means you shouldn't have to do this. You'll just sew your ears up, and I'll show you how to do that. And sometimes you don't even have to sew your ears up, particularly if you did the bring your original loop back. So there are your ears, in which you'll want to sew up and then stuff the head. You can go in and stuff the head like that. And as you can see, it rounds out the edges. Now moving on to the body, you'll want to close off the body the same way that you closed off the top of the head. Pull through and then pull through. Then take it up through the center of the body and pull through the center. And then shove back down in there to use as part of stuffing. Okay, what you want to do at this point is take a longer strand of yellow to sew up your legs. So go ahead and strand the yellow. And I like to start with the back side of one of the legs to do this. And go in and tie a knot. Now, here's how I sew up all the legs. So, I'm going to go in and sew up my edges on this side. Right along the opening. And then I'm going to send it through to the other side. But I'm not going to pull it super tight at this point. This is where I'm going to be kind of a little bit more gentle. And I'm going to take it and sew up this side. And just pull it until it's slightly snug. Okay. And then that gets that, and then what I'm going to do is send it through and pull it out from behind and pull the needle out through there. Now keep in mind, stretch that out. Now, go ahead and sew up your other leg. Then send through the middle. Sew up the back side. Okay, and then send it through, and then what you're going to do is you're going to send it up, feeling your finger inside, making sure that doesn't catch on anything, and send it up through the back side of the upper leg. Then, of course, stretch it out, make sure it's not too tight, and then you're going to sew up this leg, just like you did the other. And this will save you from having to tie off and hide a whole bunch of extra ends. If it's not necessary, you don't need to do it. And so send it through the middle to the other side. And then sew up the other side. Okay, then you're going to send it through and come out the other arm and stretch it, make sure it's not too tight. And then you're going to sew up the last leg. And send it through the middle to the other side. And sew that last bit up. And you are almost done. Okay, then what you want to do is send it back down like that and pull it, and then you can just tie it off. And then you only have one tied off area that you actually have to hide. And that is how you go about sewing up your legs in one shot. I'm all about doing it the easy way. Okay, and if you have a tail, you'll sew it up. You can start sewing up that as well, right along the same line. So it doesn't change much. You just add the tail in if you have to sew in the tail. But a lot of times you don't. So go ahead, and I would suggest taking little bits and stuffing the legs first. I always stuff my legs first. And I'll tell you right now, the softer your yarn you use, like the blanket yarn, the better it shows up. The less it shows the seaming and everything that you've had to do to close it up. But you want to go in and stuff the legs first. And you want to do a little at a time because the holes are not that big when you think about it. And before you finish, you might want to make sure that all of them are fairly stuffed evenly. One more, can use a little bit more. There. Okay. At this point, that might have been stuffed a little too much. Okay. At this point, and you'll know if you stuff it too much, it's when you start seeing the stuffing. Okay, then you want to start stuffing the body. So. And if you're doing this on the 12 peg loom, you probably won't be able to stuff it quite as much as I can on the 15 peg loom. That's the benefit of the smaller gauge. Okay. So now that I have stuffed my body, I'm going to sew my head on. And you're just going to sew it on around there. And I like to have this extra yarn here to sew the head on. And keep in mind, the space, the ear should be coming from the back half of the sphere, and when you place it on there, know that your starting spot's a little off, so keep that in mind when doing this. So start sewing your head on. And keep in mind, even after you do this, you're going to need to do a little bit of shaping, but not a whole lot. Okay. And then I'm going to take my drawstring around the head and pull it a little tighter, and that'll suck the head in to make it more bubbly. And then what I like to do is go in and tie the ends off. Snip and tuck your ends. Okay. And then you can press down and you see you have more of a sphere. And this is your basic shape when you remove the ears. You can see that this is your basic shape of your amigurumi. And this is the pattern base I'm going to be working from when creating any of my amigurumi patterns. And the great thing is that yes, there is sewing, but you aren't trying to gauge where to sew it on the body. All you have to do is close the holes. And let's be honest, closing holes is a lot easier than placing body parts. So this is how to do a amigurumi animal